It's Brownhaven Farm near New Bremen. That's where we are this week. And I'm Gary Jackson visiting with Lou Brown. Lou's operation here in New Bremen, as you can see in the background, is a dairy operation. Lou, can you tell us a little bit about the operation, how many cows you milk, and a little bit about the rest of the operation?
This is a family farm. We have 200 dairy cows here. All of the labor is provided by the local family. Morning milkings are at 4:30 to 7:30. We're on twice a day milking. All of the dairy milk that's from this farm goes to Dannon for the yogurt product.
Now, this is an operation that is a brother operation. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the farm?
We started here in 1959. My dad started this farm, and each boy, when he graduated from high school, had the opportunity to come into the operation. So I started the first time. I was the oldest boy, and my younger brother Alan lives a mile up the road at the heifer farm, and we own the cows about 50-50, and we farm all the land together 50-50.
Well, Lou, I understand, as you mentioned, that the milk goes to Dannon. How long has that been going on?
For as long as I can remember. As when they started in Minster, that was the first ours went there. So,
well, there's in this area, challenges, because this farm is actually located 3 miles from Grand Lake St. Mary's. And I know that a lot of folks, people in agriculture, non-ag people, at times blame the ag community for all that's wrong with the algae and the bacteria in the lake. They have to realize that farmers are doing an awful lot that they don't see to correct that problem and make the lake better.
We are trying to do as many best management practices as we can. I think there's 7 or 8 especially that we are proud of that we've been able to accomplish. We started with some buffer strips along the road. We've done cover crops. We have quail buffers. We do a lot of soil testing. We have a comprehensive nutrient management plan. We expanded our lagoon just for safety reasons. If you get an unusual 10-inch rain all of one sudden, that can put a lot of extra water in your lagoon. All of the no-till corn that we put out, we have 5 continuous years of corn after corn and no-till. It's an experiment that we're doing for cover crops in it after the corn silage comes off. Also, all of the land has a cover crop that the silage is taken off of. I believe there's a total of 140 acres this year planned for cover crop again.
Well, Lou, it's interesting, a lake, or I should say a stream that goes through the property. In July of this year, you took a little bit of water out of that stream, and you got a glass jar here that looks pretty clear.
We're proud of that. A lot of people accuse the farmers in the area of dirty water going to the lake. Well, a lot of times it's a really clean looking water is what's in that creek.
Well, the filter strips along the road prevent any kind of a discharge from getting into the ditches that you have, so you're taking care of the problem long before it would even get close to Grand Lake St. Mary's.
We agree that the filter strips are a big plus to have on the farm, and all of ours are 200-foot wide strips, and they're very easy to maintain, very easy to install, so to me it's one of the best practices that we're doing.
Now, Lou, if you were doing this yourself, that might not be enough, but as I understand it, neighbors are joining neighbors to work together.
Yes, when they can see one neighbor start doing it and how easy it is to do it, it just kind of takes a domino effect. It goes right down the road, and everybody else is kind of pitching in doing the same.
Well, now, the quail buffers, why do you do that?
Well, we always liked wildlife, and we found that this was an area backed by a woods. It's protected away from the highway, and we thought it would be a good place to put in some of the environmental practices that might bring some wildlife back to the area.
Well, this year, after growing wheat, taking the wheat off, you decided to do something that you've never done before.
Yes, we tried putting some corn, which will be hopefully mature enough that we can make silage out of it whenever the frost comes. That's what we're related on. As long as we don't get an early frost, we should be able to get a crop of corn silage off of that field.
Well, during the wintertime, there was a group of senior boys from the high schools in the area that got together, and you and a neighbor helped a little bit with some ideas and helped them along maybe in ways that they wouldn't have an opportunity to build some things if you weren't here.
Well, they had the initiative and the drive. They wanted to do something, and we just found them some used materials. If they wanted to build a cabin, we kind of guided them in the right direction, but we didn't tell them what they could or couldn't do, and we wanted to see what they would do on their own, and we're pretty excited of what they accomplished.
Now, that was from an FFA class in school?
Yes. They were students in FFA, but it wasn't an actual FFA class.
Okay, but they got they made arrangements to get materials and came up with their plans, and all their ideas were the same.
Yes.
And so did that spur any kind of an idea among any of them that they wanted to become carpenters or to go into architecture or do any of those things, maybe just a little light bulb here or there?
Well, I'm sure that all of them have in the back of their mind they'd like to be better at carpenter work and design and all the things that you can't just go out there and build something from scratch. You need a little bit of a know-how what you're doing for it to come out right.
Well, Lou, folks that are driving by this state highway would have no idea of some of the things that you've been doing. Putting tile stops in for manure that's running in the tile system, that's something that a lot of people wouldn't have any idea about.
Well, it's not just for manure running in the tile. It's just a protective measure that you'll be 100% safe. If you close them tile stops, there's nothing going to leave your farm. It will stay in the tile if you ever would have an accidental spill.
Now, how many of those do you have on the farm?
We have 4 total big tiles that leave the farm, and all 4 have a tile stop on them.
Well, that's something that can pretty much shut down any kind of runoff that the farm might experience.
Yes, we should be 100% taken care of by way of the tile.
I understand, too, that just this year you've become a member of the Soil and Water here in the county, and that's opened your eyes to some of the things that are happening in other parts of the county.
That's correct. When you're here on a dairy farm, you don't get away that much, but from time to time we have local meetings, and we get to see what's going on the other side of the county. We have a lot of tile projects, a lot of waterways going in this particular year, and some log jam removals that need to be taken care of, so we've got a lot of things on the board.
Now, doing things the right way is something that, well, the Browns do on a daily basis. In fact, we were just talking with them yesterday before we came out today, and so what you see here is what you get every day, and you've really got to keep this dairy operation in tip-top shape on a daily basis to get the most efficiency out of the cows and the entire operation.
Yes, it's important for us to keep the cows healthy. Cow comfort is number one here, and we try to do everything we can because we live so close to the highway. We want to present a good public image, so we try to do the best we can.
Now, again, how many times a day do you milk?
We're on 2 times a day milking.
And with those, you have some equipment that you put in I believe, an 8-year-old barn, and that equipment milks how many per hour?
We can milk 80 cows an hour with a double 10 parlor.
Okay, and you were saying that with that kind of efficiency and what you've been able to do here, the building paid for itself much sooner than what you originally thought.
Yes. We were able to cut off about 2 to 3 years of payment time just because we were very efficient and we didn't go out and borrow a lot of extra money to build more building or to buy more cows. We just concentrated on the parlor first.
Okay. Milking the cows that you do now, any ideas in the future to expand the business or staying pat for a while?
We'd like to stay at the same numbers that we're at right now because we're in the watershed. Everybody's looking extremely close at the number of livestock per acre. So we don't want to cause a problem here. We would just like to maintain where we're at.
Well, Brownhaven Farm has had several tours that have come by from time to time, and you want to educate the public and let them know anything that is happening with the farm and all that you're doing. What would the person that would like to get a little bit more information about what you or other farmers, other dairymen in the industry are doing, especially in this area, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Probably if they contact us here personally, we'd gladly give them a private tour. And if that didn't work, go through the county extension office. They have access to lots of farms that could give a good tour, and whether it be dairy, swine, poultry, I'm sure you could line up something.
Lou, with all the manure that you do have here, and I know that you apply it to the various fields, any thoughts of utilizing the waste for any kind of fuel, electricity, or anything like that?
We've looked at the possibilities of a biodigester. It's still up in the air right now, whether we produce it for electricity or possibly the gas. Methane gas sounds very economical. I have a son, Dan, who is working on a master's degree right now, and he is specializing in biodigesters, and he's up at Worcester right now. And depending on what he finds in his research, may decide what we're going to do in the next year or two. So that's a possibility.
Now, we've seen that operation. I've seen that personally, and there's so much potential for that that could be utilized on farms, not only dairy farms, but any kind of livestock farm. And it would solve a potential problem and also create some advantages for farmers for that bottom line.
If they can get those digesters tweaked where they're really economical and where they can really produce methane gas, I think it's the future for Ohio.
And you know, also, Lou, this area, the western part of the state, has for many years now been a little bit ahead of the curve, utilizing a barter system, if you will, for manure, either selling it or trading it. Have you taken advantage of that?
We haven't sold any manure, but we have traded manure and traded it for straw from some neighboring farms, and that works out very well for both the person receiving and the person who's hauling it over there. Some of the other things we had were a program for taking manure out of the watershed, and we've trucked some 6 miles and applied it to some of the land that we rent, and that's worked pretty well also for us.
I know that you told me that you see some trucks driving by with chicken manure that's trucked out of the area, so other people are taking advantage of the program as well.
Yes, that's true. Some days we'll see 10 to 15 semi-loads of chicken manure heading north or heading east from here, and some of it, I'm sure, is going 3 and 4 and 5 counties away.
Well, hopefully a little bit of education there as you learn a little bit more about what's happening on the farm in western Ohio. Lou, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for coming.
And stay with us. More to come when we continue with In Ohio Country Today.
For more information about today's show or to suggest a topic, fax, call, or email us today